Okay. And now the judges will introduce themselves.
Good afternoon to the students from the Palmetto State, I believe, South Carolina. My name is Maria Garnett. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I work in state government as a policy advisor for the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. I also have a lot of experience doing nonpartisan policy analysis for the Virginia General Assembly. This is my third year of involvement with We the People, and I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Good afternoon. My name is Petra Al-Sufi. I am the Outreach and Partnerships Manager at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, a research and education organization that researches American Muslims and other faith communities. I'm also on the board of the Michigan Center for Civic Education. And many years ago, I was in your place as a student participant in We the People program. So this is me telling you, you will survive this, you'll do fine, and you'll remember it many years from this experience.
So it's still morning where I'm at, but I'll say good afternoon, South Carolina. My name is Dan Wong. I'm a retired attorney and former judge. I'm on the National Board of Directors for the Center for Civic Education. I live in Boise, Idaho. I am excited to listen to your testimony and presentation today. Welcome. Thank you.
So students, please go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us where you go to school and introduce your teacher as well.
Hi, my name's Owings Holler, and I'm a senior at Wilson Hall School in Sumter, South Carolina. And our teacher is Tom O'Hare. He's in here right now. But
I'm Mary Luber, and I go to Wilson Hall as well in Sumter, South Carolina.
My name's Enric Dickey. I'm also a senior at Wilson Hall.
Great, thank you so much. So I am going to dive right in with reading your Unit 6 question for today. President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." Do you agree or disagree? Why? What disagreements did the founders have about a standing army, and are they relevant today? And to what extent should there be an international U.S. military presence? You may begin.
Some of the founders believed that a standing army would grant too much power to the government. They believed that granting all of this power to the government would allow them to invade their rights, the rights and liberties of the people. So the solution they made was to allow the president to command the army, but checked it by letting Congress decide the budget under Article 1, Section 8. The founding fathers were also concerned about how expensive war was and wanted to avoid war, especially following the results of both the French and Indian War, which led to the Revolutionary War. The founders had a reasonable suspicion that the government may become too powerful because of previous English control. Eisenhower was warning the country to not let the military expand too much. Because of the military-industrial complex, the army was integrating itself into every household in America. During the Korean War, the steel mills were seized when Truman sent out a decree for the government to operate all the mills in the country. The Supreme Court case of Youngstown Street and Tube Company versus Sawyer was brought up from this because people questioned whether or not the president had the authority to do this. The situation showed how much war in the military was influencing the country at the time. The warning pertaining to now, the caution is well warranted, especially with incidents such as the Kent State Massacre or numerous other protests turned deadly once the National Guard was involved. It is important to maintain a stable standing army for protection, but also one that will not misuse or abuse its power.
The international U.S. military presence is justified in any areas that are currently threatening our country. As for our bases in other countries, the U.S. should have some presence in allied countries, seeing as they're mutually beneficial to both our country and their country, depending on the amount of hope/support that these countries need to determine how large a presence in other countries should be. It is important for our country to make strong allies and help other countries so our country can expect support from other countries during our times of need. In President Eisenhower's quote, The potential, wait, he emphasizes the importance to place limits on the power of the military, as well as those tied to it, to prevent them from attaining too much influence or power in the government and starting wars for their own benefit or profit. The presence of a strong military is necessary to protect our country, but we have to ensure that there are necessary and effective limits on that power. Giving too much power to any group of people enables them to make corrupt choices.
If the military has too much power, they could try to take over the government, as has happened in other countries such as World War II and Nazi Germany. Too much military power would disrupt the checks and balances of the government, effectively creating a fourth branch. The founders feared that a standing army would overthrow the government. If the military ever did turn on everyone else, the government would have no defense because their only defense is fighting against themselves. Another disagreement the founders have had with the amount of money that should be invested in a standing army. Another disagreement was what requirements should be met in order to be in a standing army. The international US military presence should be there as protection for our country. The military should have some towers, but enough to keep it equal. Without a military, the US would easily be taken over because we are defenseless. The US military should be present in our ally countries as a protection and presence in threatening countries to the US.
Great, thank you so much. I'd like for you to tell me a little bit more about the kinds of limits that you think should be placed on the power of the military and those tied to it, as you said. And do you think that the current limits on the military and those associated with it are strong enough?
Well, when we're examining like the power that the military has, I think the most important thing that we can look to is the fact that they have their own court system, and that a lot of things involved in the military need to be somewhat separate from the government overall, but still function similarly, but only in regards to the military.
Yeah, I think it's really important to not give the military too much power, but you also have to give it some power because the military and the government need to have respect for each other, because without that respect, that's going to lead to the military wanting more power. So you have to give them some, but also not too much to the point where it gets out of hand. But I think that the limits that we should have on it is, I mean, we have limits to checks right now. Congress can control the military budget, but the president is also in charge of commanding the military. And I think that's a really good balance that we have right now.
So staying on this topic a little bit, limits on the military, it seems with the amount of money we spent on the military, the kind of treatment it has gained way more power than what originally was envisioned. Do you see that as part of the work of the military industrial complex? And what are some ways that we could, if you agree, we could bring back some of the power of the military?
I see it as just our country evolving and growing. Like years ago, we did not have healthcare or welfare for people, but now we have those services, and it also goes along with the military. Now we have services for Veterans Affairs to help people with PTSD and all that stuff. And I think it just goes along with our country evolving. The military also is included with that, so they get those rights, or not rights, they get those benefits, and it just goes along with that.
I think the military industrial complex is definitely adding, to the expenses of the military, like you said. And I do think that if we're not careful, they will obtain too much power over, how much money is going into the military. So I do think that we should be, supervising that to some degree.
And it's also important to acknowledge that our founders originally did not want a super big national standing army, but wanted the military to be more local, like your local militia at the time, rather than a giant standing army controlled by one person, or who in this case would be the king for them.
So I think a lot of Americans would agree that the U.S. military presence overseas should be reduced to a certain degree to the necessary and effective limits, as you indicated. But what about the argument of others who say that if the US military presence is reduced overseas, other countries such as Russia and China and other countries would fill that void by sending their military and money, and thereby US losing influence in the world? What do you say to those people?
Well, when you look at it, America is one of the few countries that actually has a lot of those bases like that in other parts of the world. But it's also important to remember that those countries let us be there because it's a mutual benefit for their protection and for our protection in the long term.
I kind of agree with the opposing side saying, like, you know, if we don't have these bases in other countries, and it's going to make, you know, our big competitors like Russia and China feel like we don't have as much power anymore. You know, you want to be able to keep these bases in other countries to show that, like, we're here, we have power, and we're still there, and we don't want y'all to interfere with us in any way.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily our responsibility, but it's something we can do because the United States is such a powerful country, and it has the ability to go out and help people and aid in all of these other countries' affairs. And I think it's a great thing that we can do if they want our help. If they don't want our help, I don't think that we should go and impose our government on them, because that's not our responsibility, and they have their own government and their ways to do it. And if they don't want the help, then we should not. We can offer it to them, but we should not force it upon them.
I'd like to circle back. You know, you all mentioned as an example that the military has its own court system, that it is not, you know, part of the traditional system of justice that's available for civilians in the United States. But thinking about the past several years, the military doesn't seem to be solving the issue of sexual assault in the ranks, for example. So what changes, if any, do you think should be made to make sure that the military is upholding American values and holding true to the Bill of Rights for those who are enlisted?
Yeah, I think that we should apply the same laws and same rules that are in our Constitution, that are in our amendments, like the Title IX, like saying that it's a prominent thing, sexual assault is happening and it shouldn't be, and you should be reprimanded for committing an act of sexual assault. And I think the military should crack down more on it because it's very prevalent and it needs to be dealt with.
I agree with that. And it's such a terrible thing to just see it being overlooked all the time in the nature of what is essentially a whole other bureaucracy of the military, and the amount of hoops that they go through and red tape that they go through that they just don't even try to go through whenever it's someone's life. And they would just rather not go through all that trouble because they don't see it as worth it.
Yeah, I definitely think that that sexual assault should be taken more seriously in the military and not be as overlooked as it is right now. And I think that there are plenty of ways that the military could, say, hey, we really do not support this and we want y'all to, abide by this and not, do that. And I think that they're not really putting that out there right now. And that's why it's such a serious issue. But I think that, with time and, their voice, that they could make a difference.
And then I think that one of the biggest ways they can make a difference is even when you look at the military and what they thought in regards to homosexuality, from going from don't ask, don't tell, to what Obama has made it much more normalized now. The same thing could happen now with the campaign of President Biden attempting to make it more, to get the issue out to more people and make it a hot topic of how are we going to address this in the military.
Okay, thank you. So one quick follow-up question is, what is your stand on the use of military equipment and military training tactic by police forces in domestically?
I think that personally, I don't like it. I think the police force and the military are separate, and they should be. The police force.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Okay.
Great. So we as judges are now going to give you some feedback on your performance. You know, you are a small team, and I really appreciated not just that you, shared the response time really well. You know, you split your opening statement pretty easily among one another. But it was clear to me that you all were communicating with one another. You know, when you thought somebody else might have something to add, for example, that showed me that you all are a cohesive team, that's been doing this work together, and that really showed in the quality of your answers as well. So definitely take that lesson forward with you, later through high school and college and the workplace. A piece of feedback that I have is, a lot of your answers ended up, citing really good examples, but started off so heavily about, your opinion or what you think, and it sometimes took a while to get to your supporting evidence. So try to think about, tightening up that journey a little bit so that we as judges know that you're not just telling us what you think as an individual, that you are giving your opinion filtered through all of the evidence that you've collected along the way. But again, really, really great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Maria. I think we were able to get a wide variety of questions because you were able to address wide variety of topics. So that showed me that you had an understanding of the topic. You understood some of the issues related to it. You took positions and defended them. And I think at some point there were a couple positions of presenting multiple positions. So that's good. And you used you supported your positions, but like Maria mentioned, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more historical and constitutional principles and evidence in your conversation. I didn't see a whole lot of that, and that was unfortunate, but the rest of it I think was really strong.
I enjoyed your presentation. Clearly, you have spent a lot of time thinking about it and doing the research necessary to provide a historical basis and fact-based answer to the 4-minute question and presentation. On your cross-examination questions, this sounds like a broken record, but you clearly have views and opinions, and we were happy to hear those views and opinions, but you got to follow it up with why you have that opinion, why you have that view, and that would have been much more helpful and much more meaningful. We have no doubt that you know the why, and we just need to hear it from you. So with that in mind, I do want to say that I enjoyed your presentation and best wishes going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and good luck. And I hope to see you guys if you make it for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.